There's not a police report, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's not a legal case playing out here for due process to see itself through. So my question to you, given the very high standards Politico has before they write something like this and publish it, what aspects of this story brought it to the level of publishable?
We looked at messages that she had sent to others in the months after this happened through social media.
But you were able to see those DMs?
She tried to recover those DMs. We did not. We were not able to review those DMs, but she described them to us.
What in the world is happening? Mika Brzezinski grilling the Politico reporter that reported the allegation against Graham Platner, a shocking source of skepticism from there. She actually did a brilliant job. We'll show you more about that in a second. And she was tougher on the Politico reporting and the establishment reporting than a lot of progressive activists have been.
100%.
So is Graham Platner going to drop out? We've certainly got details for you on that. If he does, who might be the next person online, and was he targeted? So a lot to discuss here. Anna's got the facts.
So before we give you the details, I just want to say Graham Platner's candidacy was treated very differently from the typical centrist / establishment types in the Democratic Party. As you just saw, Mika Brzezinski seems very skeptical of the latest reporting, which we're going to get back to in just a second. James Carville, who is, part and parcel of the Democratic establishment, defended Graham Platner prior to the latest allegations. So the establishment wasn't just flat out rejecting him. So I want you to keep that in mind as I give you the details of what's going on here. Now, the latest allegations have to do with a 41-year-old Maine resident who used to date Graham Platner on again, off again for about 2 years. Her name is Jenny Racicot, and she claims that in late 2021, he allegedly entered her home when the door was unlocked. He was deeply intoxicated, by her telling, and forced himself on her while she told him to stop repeatedly. So her allegation, let's be very clear, is that Graham Platner entered her home when he wasn't invited and forcibly raped her. She says to Politico, quote, "I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice." Now, she previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner in a New York Times article, but she didn't go into the details. She refused to elaborate, and she said she didn't want to do it, specifically because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim, okay? But she decided to do it a week before an incredibly important electoral deadline in this Senate race in Maine. Now, Platner flat out denies the allegations, but it clearly looks like he is going to eventually drop out of this race because every person who endorsed him has now turned on him. Further, this is a statement from Graham Platner's campaign. They say these allegations are very serious and Graham vigorously denies them. They are also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. For a year, opponents of this campaign have thrown everything they can at Graham, calling him a Nazi, a war criminal, and a communist. None of it has been true, and this is no different. It is not a coincidence, they say, that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. Graham began his campaign to fight for a Maine where everyone is treated with dignity and where Mainers are put first, and no amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. Now, I want to just quickly get into what type of evidence Politico relied on in order to publish this story, because these are serious allegations. So Racicot told Politico that she had exchanged text messages with Platner that night, telling him not to come over before he did come over, right? Now, she said that she wasn't in the mood for company. Later that evening, she said that she realized when she heard a sound at the stairs or on the stairs that he had let himself in. She left the door unlocked, which allowed for him to let himself in. Platner came up the stairs, she said, to where she was on a couch. He got on top of her and kept grabbing her, she said, while she repeatedly told him to stop and that she wasn't interested. She said she smelled alcohol in his breath and believed he was almost blackout drunk because Platner ignored her protests and continued to grab her after knocking over an antique sewing kit, spilling small needles everywhere. Now, she was apparently unable to produce the text messages or the direct messages that she allegedly sent to Platner, which Mika Brzezinski drilled the Politico reporter on. So let's take a quick look at that.
What do you have that actually connects this literally? Graham Platner to raping this victim?
Yeah, she reached out to him the day after via Instagram, and essentially, told him that she didn't want to hear from him again. She told him that morning as well, and we looked at messages that she had sent to others in the months after this happened through social media.
But you were able to see those DMs?
She tried to recover those DMs. We did not. We were not able to review those DMs, but she described them to us. We also, long before he was before he was a political candidate, we saw her essentially explain to others that he was, quote, in her words, consensually careless, end quote. Right,
but were you able to see the interactions between Graham Platner and this alleged victim? Did you actually physically see them? Did she produce them for you?
She attempted to uncover them. But was unable to.
Willie?
Okay, so let me give you some more detail into the Politico reporting, and then I'll go to you, Cenk. So they write that Racicot had said that she waited several weeks until she got her period to ensure she wasn't pregnant, then sent Platner a private message on Instagram saying that the encounter was not consensual and she did not want to hear from him ever again. She said she later deleted all texts and social media correspondence with Platner as she tried to move on from the assault, and said she has not been able to recover Instagram messages she sent him about the incident. Now, what is the evidence then? Well, the strongest evidence that Politico was able to provide to justify their reporting, where they're essentially accusing him of rape, is the following. So there was an exchange between Racicot and an acquaintance on Facebook, and I'm gonna read you the relevant portions of their exchange. So the acquaintance says, "What's his deal? Should I not fix up my friend, assuming he's single?" Racicot responds with, "He can be charming and funny, and he's a decently intelligent person. He's not all bad, but I ended up in a bad situation with him, and I will just very politely call him consensually careless at times." Okay, the acquaintance says, She responds, "When drunk plus PTSD." Acquaintance says, "I knew about the PTSD." And then she says, "He also lies." And then the acquaintance says, "Forces himself on people." I guess that's what she's trying to say. And then Racicot later says, "One thing that grossed me out after him and I had dated was that I saw his profile on OkCupid, and that site asks a lot of questions. And one of the questions was, if your partner told you they had over 100 sexual partners, what would your response be?" And his response was, "That's not that many." So that super grossed me out, thinking he's probably slept with a ton of people. Doesn't listen to you when drunk. Okay, that is the most significant evidence. And personally, as a woman, if someone raped me, I wouldn't call them consensually challenged, but maybe that's just the way she communicates, I don't know. Further, there was a therapist that she spoke to recently about this alleged rape from all the way back in 2021. So she didn't tell her therapist about it at the time. She didn't file a police report. She apparently told an ex-boyfriend who she started dating in 2022 about the incident, although she was very vague about it. The man, who was granted anonymity out of concern for his personal privacy, told Politico that she had told him bits and pieces about a bad experience with Platner before confiding the full details of what happened in 2023. That's the other piece of evidence that maybe you can point to. But I don't know. Everyone has withdrawn their endorsement of Platner, and I think the allegations are suspicious. I'm just gonna say it. I think Platner's tattoo and his explanation of how he handled the tattoo after realizing it was a Nazi tattoo was way more problematic than these claims. That's my thought.
Okay, there are two different issues here. Was he targeted? What does it mean to be targeted? And then did he actually do this specific allegation? So you've got to separate those two things out, and they're both relevant. So first of all, the media never talks about this thing that everyone in politics knows about, because it would make them kind of complicit in some of the games that are played. It's called oppo research, opposition research. So there are different groups that do opposition research, and then they hand it over to the media. So the groups that are doing it clearly have an agenda, and this is now bipartisan. It's not like Democrats don't do opposition research. Progressives do it, but super weak, in my opinion. Almost never do they actually put any oomph behind it. And besides which, when establishment figures give oppo research to the mainstream media, they love it. The media loves it and immediately prints it, and that's relevant to this case. If progressives give it to them, they don't print it, and they look it over 1 billion times and say it didn't meet their standards. That's why Mika Brzezinski's questions there were really interesting. She's like, this met your standards? Your evidentiary standards? So let's start with, now when you move over, we'll come back to who might have targeted him. But was he targeted? Oh, there's no question. I mean, you'd have to be brain dead. You'd have to be Mitch McConnell not to see that he was targeted. It was one thing after another. His tattoos, his Reddit post, his every girlfriend is contacted by the New York Times. Why? And then one woman comes out who's basically does oppo research for the Republicans, and she says he did something for me.
And who defended Brett Kavanaugh when Christine Blasey Ford came forward with, I think, far more credible allegations against Kavanaugh, because there were several people she spoke to at the time of the alleged rape attempt by Kavanaugh.
So this is the media's like 7th attempt or something to end Graham Platner's campaign. If you think these are just, oh, well, he's so problematic, they're just organically popping up. That's not true at all. That is definitively not correct. There are groups who try to take out candidates. It is relatively normal, although it's never talked about in the press, because remember, the press doesn't do their own job. These groups do. And then the question is, who does the press choose to target? Who do they choose to write the stories about? Who do they choose to not write the stories about? But we're gonna come back to the essence of this case in a second. Anna.
I just have so many thoughts about this, so bear with me as I go through them all, okay? I loathe horse race politics specifically because of this reason, because it places us in this unbearable position of having to adjudicate something that should have been adjudicated in a court of law if this actually took place. If someone entered my home and forcibly raped me, I would not allow the individual who forcibly raped me, that's violent, right? To remain in my home and sleep it off. But that is what she did. She alleges that he was so drunk that she didn't want to tell him to leave because he might harm someone on the road. He just forcibly raped you, right? Call the cops, or more importantly, get the hell out of the house. But she did neither one of those things. Neither one of those things.
Yeah, so look, again, I hate the situation we're in where we have to try to adjudicate this with not enough evidence. Could it be that she's telling the truth? Of course it could be. Now, guys, if it's true, then it's a huge problem, right? But we don't know for sure that it's true. But in a situation like this, even if you say you're not sure that it's true, that's it, people come and take your head off. Because they say once we made an allegation, it's over. You're not allowed to object to the allegation. But wait a minute, the thing that caught my attention here, and again, Mika Brzezinski also saying this doesn't look right at all, this is not enough to publish a piece, gives you a sense of, we're not making this up, guys, and we're not doing it because we're biased. Look at the fact pattern here. So the thing that caught my eye, Anna, was on the therapist. Because
yes, the therapist didn't want to talk to the press, by the way.
Yeah, the Politico kept saying, well, she says she talked to the therapist, and the therapist does not acknowledge it, but says that they do have a relationship. No, wait.
No. Let's be totally accurate, okay?
Yeah.
The therapist acknowledged that she spoke to her recently about what allegedly happened, but did not want to issue a statement to Politico.
Yeah, so the therapist is not confirming it.
Right.
I mean, there's a very easy way to confirm it. Say, hey, I don't want to talk about it, but yes, I confirm that she said that, right? And maybe give some context, give a statement, and then get. Look, the therapist is in a tough spot too. It doesn't mean that she thinks is skeptical. We have no idea. But that's the thing. In order to print a story, you're supposed to have two excellent sources, right? So here, the only thing that's a little bit persuasive is those text messages that Anna read to you guys. And so then you guys make up your own mind on whether you think calling someone consensually careless is the same as saying he raped me. So, and by the way, in all of these stories, it's barely ever mentioned that they were in a relationship at the time.
She spent more time elaborating how disgusted she was that he might have slept with a lot of women than she did about the alleged rape. When she's talking to an acquaintance who's asking her about Graham Platner because she's thinking about fixing a friend up with him.
Yeah, so every person that they go to, the current boyfriend, the therapist, the other folks, people that normally in a story like this go, yes, at the time she told me this, and this is a text message we have, or etc. None of that is here other than the two texts that Anna read you. One of them is barely relevant. The other one is the one that has the careless comment, right? So if you think that's definitive, I'm 100% positive, no problem. Because it's like we all make a different choice on how we view it. So look, for me, this is not about whether Graham Platner did it or not. At this point, that question is almost irrelevant because
it's over. It's over for him. Yeah.
Everybody pulled their endorsement. It's considered toxic. You can't support him, blah, blah, blah. So we're not trying to fight that battle, guys. We're trying to tell you how politics works and what to be on the lookout for. And how does this process work? Because were there all these different opposition research groups targeting Susan Collins and calling all of her ex-boyfriends and looking through her text messages, asking about therapists? None, zero. Is there any about like establishment candidates, Democrat or Republican? Almost never. It has to fall right into your lap, right? And again, it's output research usually by other Democrats, right? But do they get targeted? No, the establishment never gets targeted, never gets. But when you have an outsider, Bernie Sanders, Graham Platner, but a lot of right-wing outsiders too, they rev up the machine. Let's go, destroy, destroy, destroy. What's interesting about something that Anna mentioned is that in this case, not all the establishment Democrats are united.
No, they're not.
Sonny Hosten also defended Graham Platner today. Today on The View.
That's so shocking. Yeah, so I mean, look, the reason why I bring up the establishment figures who are defending him is because this isn't a typical progressive candidate that has the establishment digging in to see what kind of opera research they can find to destroy him. I'm sure there are some. But I didn't feel the same treatment toward Platner that I noticed with other progressive candidates in earlier races or even during this election cycle. So look, I think that after he won the primary, all he needed to do was see who was outraged by his win. It wasn't members of the Democratic establishment. It tended to be people who didn't like his stance on foreign policy. I'll just leave it at that. So I don't know who dug up the Oppo research. All I know is there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to this issue, when we literally have a sitting president who played a massive role in the cover-up of the Epstein files, who has been found civilly liable for sexual abuse in the E. Jean Carroll's case, who has been credibly accused of all sorts of things, including sexual assault and rape by dozens of women. I mean, so are we going to allow this kind of stuff or not? Because it seems like when it comes to certain political figures, it's totally okay, even if in a court of law, civilly they are found liable of sexual abuse. Even though they are found liable, of engaging in a cover-up of one of the biggest sex trafficking scandals involving minors that we know of in American history. So I don't know, this whole thing is trash. And look, I hate being put in this position because I've been skeptical of Platner since the tattoo thing. And you know that because we had it out on the show on that issue. How do you realize you have a Nazi tattoo and wait until you're running for a congressional or for a Senate seat to remove it? I just don't get it. I don't understand that. So Platner wasn't my favorite. I'm not going out of my way to defend him because he's someone that I desperately want to win. The reason why I'm doing this right now is because I'm looking at the facts we have in front of us right now, and I'm sorry, I just don't think the evidence rises to the occasion of Politico publishing this as if he is already proven guilty as a rapist.
And Jay Tapper was ready with a segment on this as soon as the story broke, so that means that they had some advance notice that it was gonna break, and oh, you go to Jay Tapper, put it out there. Okay, so guys, look, we definitely don't know exactly who did it. So now we have to look at the puzzle and the context clues, etc. So I said right after it happened, what'll happen is now establishment media will find a new target and they'll start to attack him over and over and over and over again. And it'll probably be someone who's opposed to Israel and corporate PACs and the establishment overall. And guess who's up today? Actually, there's two people. One is Abdul El-Sayed. They have now tried a great number of attacks against him. So before, Hassan Piker was on a campaign with him. That's it, that's disqualified. That didn't work, that actually increases numbers. Today they're going with, well, this Israel stuff isn't working. He once was in favor of defund the police. Okay, so that's a new line of attack against Graham Platner. So far, 0 lines of attack against Haley Stevens, his opponent. She is an enormous supporter of Israel, has taken an enormous amount of money from the AIPAC, no investigations, no attacks, no targeting, nothing, right? Never in the news in a negative way. Abdul, one after another. Tonight, another one. Oliver Larkin, a candidate we featured here just last week. He's running against Jared Moskowitz down in Florida, an establishment Democrat, very pro-Israel, okay? Oliver Larkin is not, he wants to cut funding to Israel. Now, Hassan Piker talked to Oliver Larkin, and Oliver Larkin is not, it's a problem, attack, attack, attack. So who do I think it is? Well, normally I would say it's probably someone related to the establishment Democrats like Schumer, but the establishment Democrats are split. So that leaves the one PAC that is what? The largest contributor to members of Congress in the last election cycle, AIPAC, the Israeli lobby. If you think they wanted Graham Platner in this Senate, causing trouble for them, saying that we should pull funding of Israel, and you think that they might spend $18 million against Jamal Bowman and at least $16 million against Tom Massey, but they wouldn't do Oppo research.
Never.
No, that's a line too far.
Total
Everybody
angels.
does Oppo research. Yeah. You think AIPAC doesn't do it? So my guess is, based on these context clues, but it's just a guess. I don't know, but I do know it was definitely targeting. So, is that it was people that are part of the Israeli lobby that marked him for destruction, and that is why mainstream media is like, uncorroborated. The last New York Times piece, we talked to every single girlfriend, didn't get a single thing other than a GOP operative. We'll print it. We don't care about two sources. Our rules go out the window when we're ordered to attack. And now Politico, our normal rules, as Mika just showed you, out the window, because we've been ordered to attack. So we have to attack and destroy Graham Platner. So now, and by the way, their last piece of that trick is twofold. After they destroy their target, they then say, who supported him earlier? Yeah, you're all guilty. Now you smear Bernie Sanders and you smear Ro Khanna, you smear our revolution, you smear.
Please, for anyone who's engaging in that, choke on it. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Choke on it all night long.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.